So the theme of this afternoon is, as you heard, how can we understand the chaos in contemporary culture? And the title just assumes that we are facing chaos. And I don't think that is really hard to argue for. Just a few days ago, this picture was published. It's a woman kissing an airplane. And the text is saying that this woman is claiming to have a sexual relationship with the airplane for 9 years, but now she has finally broken up with it, but they are still friends. A few decades ago, that would be viewed as a joke, or maybe as a mentally ill person. In our culture, this is just taken seriously. You can have a sexual relationship with an airplane, with things. Here is another news flash. It's from my neighboring country, Norway. They're going to remove the word woman from the new abortion law. So now we are not upset any longer by the fact that it is legal to end the life of one's own unborn children. Now we are upset by the description that it is a woman who is pregnant and that wants to terminate her pregnancy. So in the previous law, 34 times in the Norwegian abortion law, it referenced the woman. But that word will now disappear in order to create a gender-neutral language. So it is a person who is pregnant, it is a human who is pregnant, and so on. Because we do not, as a culture, believe in a definition of male and female, of a woman and a man. Or let me take a third example. Choosing childlessness for the sake of the planet. In light of the climate crisis and all the challenges of the changes that are happening in terms of nature that is threatening, a number of people have started to argue that we should not multiply and be fruitful any longer, but in order to save the planet, we should not have faith in a future for humans. So we tend to think that nature is superior to culture, which is, of course, the opposite towards the traditional view in our culture, which was that we as human beings have a calling to subdue Earth, of course, in a responsible way, to take care of nature. And of course, we have not done that. But the solution to that is not to have the human race extinct, but to recover a better stewardship of nature. And we could go on and give so many examples of chaos in culture. And the big picture here is that we are moving from cultural Christianity, so being a culture deeply informed by the Christian faith, but the culture cannot be Christian, of course. Only a human being can be followers of Christ. But the culture can be deeply informed by Christianity and the worldview and the ideas and the convictions of Christianity. But we are now moving away from that, and we are entering a cultural chaos. And we can again see that on so many levels. We talk in our culture a lot about love and respect, but at the same time, polarization and hate is growing. Everyone values education, but at the same time, we seem to be losing the ability to think and debate and argue in a clear way. We are just raising our voices instead of deepening our thinking. And we are in many ways deeply immoral, compared to previous moral convictions, but we are also really moralistic and condemning people if they say certain things or have certain beliefs, and we are very judgmental. but we have no foundation for our judgment. So it becomes an issue for who has the biggest megaphone, who has the strongest voice in terms of our moral arguments. So we are moving into a time of a lot of disturbance and worries and uncertainties. It is a movement from an emphasis on truth and knowledge, which historically have been strong in Europe, to an emphasis on feelings, on image, on attitudes. It is a movement from ultimate issues, which of course relates to God, to issues of identity, sexuality, well-being for the individuals, all those things that are related to us as human beings. Of course, they have always been important, but they have been related to the ultimate issues, namely God and his will and his design for us. Now, those issues, identity, sexuality, well-being, are related only to us and our experience at the moment. Public debates, we are moving from public debates, discourses, to polarization and cancel culture. We want to silence people who do not agree with us, who do not affirm us. So we have a growing problem of how to handle disagreements and handle different perspectives. So it's a movement from Christendom, a culture influenced and marked by a Christian perspective, to secularism, and from secularism to pluralism, and a new aspect within pluralism, the fact that we have now many diverse perspectives. We have a growing, strong Muslim presence, which is for most places in Europe a totally new situation, which we have very little history how to understand and relate well to. We're moving from a period where Christianity have been criticized, and a lot of people have said Christianity is not true, but still a majority have thought, well, Christianity is still a force for good, even if its specific claims are not true. Now we are moving much more into a culture which says Christianity, it's not only not true, it's also within itself oppressive and morally corrupt. So this is a really challenging time for the Christian church and for us, if we are disciples of Jesus. How can we navigate in a culture, a time like this? I think for quite a lot of people, this situation and the direction we are moving in as a culture feels surprising, like it's coming out of the blue. It's just happening, those strange things. And I meet a lot of Christians who just are flabbergasted, or just don't know what is happening. Why is it happening? How come that we're moving in this direction? Now, I think it is possible to understand at least some of why it has happened, how it has happened, and therefore help us to better understand how we can respond to it. Notice that Jesus challenges his followers to understand our time. Originally, he challenged people in his time. Luke 12 says, Jesus said to the crowd, "When you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say, it's going to rain, and it does. And when the south wind blows, you say, it's going to be hot, and it is. Hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and the sky. How is it that you don't know how to interpret the present time?" So he is criticizing his contemporaries that they don't analyze what's happening within their context and their time. And of course, that was a unique time, the arrival of Messiah, the fulfillment of the promises of God in Jesus, the Son of God, God incarnate, walking among them. So that was a unique time, and a lot of people missed it. They were thinking about the weather and a lot of practical, immediate things, and they missed how to understand the crucial time they were living in. I think we can apply this word from Jesus to us. We live, of course, not in the time of Messiah's first arrival. We live in a different time. But the challenge is the same for us, to not only try to understand the rain and the sun and the weather, not only to understand technology and all the new gadgets or understand the market and so on. Of course, all that has its place, but we are called to understand the time and what is the calling for us as disciples? What is the calling for us as the church of Jesus Christ? And that's why we have this masterclass to help each other to understand our time, to interpret this present time, to quote from Luke. And I will give you 5 short presentations and try to give some tools to do that. So firstly, the first big theme. I call that blind to our assumptions, the importance of ideas. So many people just follow the flow of their own culture and are blind to the underlying assumptions of their own culture. And here I think it's really important to see the role of ideas. So you can ask the question, what is the forces behind the development of history? What is it that makes history happening? And of course, there are different factors. You can look at material factors, sociological factors. You can look at geography and nature. And there are a number of things that affects a culture and the development of a culture and how history develops. But the most important factor, so it's not the only, but the most important factor is the ideas within a culture. I think we can use these pictures to help us. The first picture is the iceberg, where you see only a small part of it above the sea, above the water, and the biggest part is beneath. Or if you look at this tree, where does the tree get its nourishment from? It's from the root system beneath. In the same way, there's something beneath in the culture which affects what's happening within this culture. And that what is beneath is the ideas, the basic assumptions of what kind of world this is, what it is to be a human being, what we're doing in this world, and above all, what is ultimate reality? What is or who is God, if there is a God? Ideas, those assumptions we have in our head, they are not just theoretical constructs that bouncing around within our mind. Ideas are having consequences. They are flowing out into our hands and feet and our lives and affects how we live, what we do as individuals, and what we do together. So I live in Sweden, and of course, wintertime, we have a lot of snow. So this is an image that is close to me. If you start to roll a snowball, it grows and it becomes bigger. It's a similar thing with ideas. You have a certain idea in your mind, and within the culture, there is a certain idea. And that idea will start to grow and affect people and affect culture. So things that's going on in the mind affects the outer world. As Christians, we shouldn't be surprised by this. If you think about the situation where everything went wrong, in Genesis 3, it says this: "So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to their eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, then she took and ate." What was the background for this? It was the serpent. representing the evil power, who planted false ideas in the mind of the woman and the man who was with her. And then those ideas started to grow in her mind. So the serpent said, if you disobey God and you eat of this tree, there will be really good consequences. You will be like God. It will elevate you. And those ideas are planted in the mind of the woman. And then the text says, the woman saw that the tree was good for food. Can you see on a fruit that it is good? No. That is an idea you're applying to reality. And that idea was, this will be really good for me if I eat of this fruit. And the woman and the man, they took of the fruit and they ate. It started in the mind with ideas that ran out into their hands and their actions, and they broke off from God. Or you can think of Romans 12 in the New Testament, where Paul is talking to us as Christians, and he say, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So how can you become changed as a human being? It involves the mind, the renewing of your mind, putting away falsehood, false ideas, and filling your mind with truth, with God's word, which is true. And then you are changed, the renewing of your mind, and then you are being able to test and approve God's will. So Paul has this perspective too, the importance of ideas, the importance of have truth in your mind, and then start to act and live out from the truth. I like this this painting of the giraffe as a painter of this beautiful woman. But he looks at the woman from just one perspective, and his understanding of her will be only partial. It will be really faulty. It will really miss a lot of things. The perspective of the giraffe is false if he wants to paint the woman. So your perspective and the ideas out from which you look into the world or out to the world is really crucial to understand the world in the right way. So many cultures paint a hat when there is actually a woman, if you understand the symbolism. We describe reality in this world in a false way. We don't see it in the true perspective. We have false ideas that blurs our understanding of reality. I like this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. He was, of course, a famous critic of the Christian faith, but he was really clear in his thinking. He says, when one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet. This morality is by no means self-evident. Christianity is a system, a whole view of things thought together. By breaking one main concept out of it, the faith in God, one breaks the whole. Nothing necessary remains in one's hands. So what he is saying here is that the Christian faith is a system of ideas. It coheres, and it's really naive to think that you can break out one of the fundamental ideas, like there is a personal creator God, and think that your understanding of the world will not differ. It will just be, oh, now we don't believe in God any longer. Now you have to view the world in a different light, and everything will change. To take another example, the concept of karma in the Eastern world. Karma is often symbolized by this picture called the endless knot. What is karma? Karma is the idea that there is an interlinking of cause and effect that continues eternally. So your life now has been caused by your action in your previous life, and your future is caused by your action now. That's the idea of karma. That creates a culture which diminishes compassion towards someone who is suffering, because they are just reaping what they themselves have sowed. It's their own responsibility that they are in such a misery. It's the just situation. That kind of idea, the idea of karma, will affect how culture develops. Ludwig Wittgenstein, the famous philosopher, he has said this: a picture held us captive, and we could not get outside it, for it lay in our language, and language seemed to repeat it to us inexorably. A picture, we were imprisoned in our imagination, and we couldn't get outside it because we repeat that perspective with our language. I think that's really true. A lot of what's happening in a culture is that we are imprisoned within our own assumptions, and it's difficult to come outside it, to break free, because that perspective is repeated and repeated and repeated again through language and symbols around us. That's why it's so important for us to try to understand what are the pictures of our culture. What is it that is holding our culture captive? What are the ideas, and what's the alternative ideas that we could embrace? So I will continue for the rest of this afternoon to try to show you the two snowballs that are rolling in our culture: the more original Christian snowball with its ideas and its consequences, and the new snowball that has been rolling through our culture, the new set of ideas that has been rolling in our culture.